I'm Enyon, welcome to my studio. I'm about to give you a run through of my new Loopack entitled Glitterball Disco for BandLab Industries. Here we go, let's dive in. What I generally do is, it's the way I start usually. I do start with some chords because it gives me the some harmonic content, does give me the way to go for the rest of the track basically. I usually start off with a tempo. In this, you can see I've gone for 115 BPM. It's usually a good place to be disco wise. I can start to speed this up or slow it down later. We'll see what happens with the other elements I bring in. I generally start with a kick as well, so I'll throw a kick in here. Generally, this is just a rough kick at the moment. I've not even designed it. I'll be tuning this and changing the length, maybe using a different sound with kick 2 here, one of my favourites at some point, and redesigning this whole kick drum later. Add some more drums in. So this is by no way finished. It's just a guide for tempo at the minute. And what I've done is I've actually just played these chords in. So I've gone for a D minor scale. And this is what I've come up with. I think it's a really kind of good groove that I can get some guitar work going in a minute. Just rough guitar work out of Contact in a moment as well. So here's what I've got. Can you feel the music? Can you feel the sound? Okay, Loopack is done. I'm going to give you a run through now and just break it down after you've seen all the recording of a lot of the elements. I'm just going to kind of run through the finished version. Give you a quick blast and then break everything down. Just starting with the drums. Loopack is pretty much done. I've got a little bit more processing to do, and then I'll start to kind of render out all of the tracks, which is quite a process. This is one track of 2 tracks I'm going to do, but I've done the video on this one. The approach I've done to this is pretty similar to how I would start and well, actually how I would compose a track. The only difference being that I would use a lot more effects processing, for example reverbs and different depths of field and stereo fields, and a lot of other effects use in there to kind of get my mix a lot better. But bearing in mind this is a Loopack, I've kind of left it a little bit drier than normal. I just kind of wanted to balance everything so that, you know, the people using the Loopack in BandLab will have the opportunity, you know, to do their own thing, to be creative with the parts that have been created. They can cut them up. They can use the effects within BandLab that, you know, can be applied to the Loopack and all of the loops and stems within that. So yeah, it's been left quite dry. So let's kind of start it. Let's break it down. I'm just going to solo up all the drums actually, and we'll just have a listen to how I've done those. Good cup of tea. Always gets you through. Right, okay, so let's start with the kick. As you saw in a previous video, I use kick 2. I tend to import kick drums and change them, add different clicks. So there's a few bodies to this. You saw in an earlier video of me just bringing in a kick drum, not doing a lot with it. Now this one though is processed, so I've changed the envelopes. The clicks are different. It's tuned. I'm working in a D minor here, and yeah, so it's all tuned to that now. So the kick drum is done. By the way, I'm not going to go into depth on this tutorial. It is just an overview of how I've gone about doing this. Yeah, so kick drum. Okay, then I went about using the recordings I did of the hand claps, and I layered a lot of those different hand claps. And you can see here that they're all very much layered here. Let's just solo all of those together. I've pretty much left these dry, and one version has a reverb on it, which I imported into the sampler. So I've got this. So I've got there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different layers playing together to just create that sound. They've been EQ'd a little bit to take out bottom end and actually shave off some of the top end. The microphone I was using there is very, very sensitive, and you know, it was picking up a lot of high end. And then to finish that off, to give a little bit more weight to those claps, you can hear I've added a reverb on one of them as well, processed it a little bit more, and kind of sounds like a real nice disco clap all together, which is a theme, very big thing when you're making disco music. And then I've then used the snare. So I've got, over the years, I've built up absolute banks and banks and banks of snare samples, and I tend to put all my favourites into a bank of snares, and there they all are, all the recordings. They're just right across this keyboard, and then I'm able to kind of just find what snare I want, you know, and process that from there. This one is just going to back up really the clap. You can hear the difference, adds a little bit more to that. Use some EQ, so I've cut out the bottom end. There's quite a lot of bottom end on that snare. Just added you know, 1.5 dB extra, around 2K, a little shelf there to get it to poke out a little bit more. I'll also tell you how I kind of process the drums in a minute as well. Everything goes to a group, to another bus, and you can see that here. Bus 9 in this instance, and I'm using the glue, the compressor. Love that compressor. If you find that compressor, forget it. Piece of genius. Just kind of gets everything drum-wise back together again and gives this coherent glue, shall we say. Makes it all become a family again. I really like that. You know, everything seems to then gel well together, much better. So most of the drums, pretty much all the drums, but not the kick drum, are bussed to that compressor. If I put the kick drum there, it's going to work the compressor too hard and, you know, not do enough for the rest of the drums. So yeah, it's only it's some gentle compression I've used there. Okay. On top of that, I want to kick that. Let's bring the kick drum back in. Actually, yeah. So very straight. I would normally kind of just do a little shuffle edit with the claps, but I wanted to leave this up to you know, producers in BandLab, you know, who are going to use the loops to cut up and just use those sounds overall and make their own little skippy claps. Then a trick of mine is to always reinforce with a tambourine, and you saw me in the video earlier recording some tambourines live. That's come into the mix here. Again, EQ. The tambourines, when they're recorded, they're always got a lot of high end, and the low comes through. So I've really tidied that up, and again boosted around 1K, the problem area 1K. I put a shelf there as well, so I'm picking up that area so it sits in a lot better. Pan those a little bit as well. Start to use a little bit of panning here, so now they reinforce again. They're just so gentle, but we just listen. They're all different, they're not the same as well. I love variation in music. So yeah, okay, what have we got next? Okay, hi-hats. So if we come back to another drums here. Okay, the main hi-hat. Again, hi-hat collections. I've got some great ones on a bank here in the EXS24. I do tend to make up my own banks and groups in the EXS24, different hi-hat layers. And for this, I just wanted to, I think originally when I started this, I pulled in a rhythmic hi-hat first. And let's have a look at that, because that, again, I've got rhythmic hats in contact. And I kind of just programmed this, so I wanted a shuffle. So it's really quick and rhythmic, and there's quite a lot of velocities going on in that. And then the idea behind the rest of it was to just really kind of drive, you know, get that bit of house music in there, I suppose. You know, we're talking disco, current modern disco. So it was really good to kind of get a driving hat in there. So that was pulled from the hat bank. Very low slung metallic sound, really like that. Shuffled that a little bit. Yeah, more EQ on that. Taking out the bottom end, I'm one for rolling off a lot of frequencies that don't need to be there, to make room for the ones that do. And then for a little bit of difference, for more to make more variation again, I added another hat that is just doing very, very simple velocity changes. So when added to everything else, it feels like some of the hats slightly poke out. Yeah, so they slightly poke out. And there's a great swing in there as well. The hats aren't all the hats. I think if we have a look in here, yeah, I've got different velocities on those main hats, and they're swung as well. They're not on every beat. There's some swung ones here. Yeah. Okay, and then fills. So I've gone for some toms. What I've done here, if I just break this down, you can see on this screen. In this version here, you can see I've kind of just used the keyboard again and thrown in a tom fill in there. Sorry, my screen goes across to the video is not picking up both. So yeah, those are in there. Processing wise on these, yeah, again, so toms again, EXS24. Wow, all my favourite tom sounds over the years are all thrown in there. And they're actually done in groups on the keyboards, so I can pitch and do lots of different variations of them, right across the whole keyboard again, filled up. Ease of use, so you'll probably figure it out by now that you're looking at a template. This is one of my Logic templates, and yeah, it's just a quick go-to with all of my go-to instruments, patches that I've made over the years, and everything ready to move. I think that's a really good way for producers just to get inspiration and get going straight away. You don't want a creative block. You don't want to be kind of doing all the mind-numbing stuff in the sequence of setting up everything and importing samples, and you want all that prepared. You just want to be able to go to and straight away fast create. And I think, you know, having a good template, so all my contact banks are in there. My, you know, the EXS drums are in there. You'll see in a minute anyway. You know, my favourite strings, synths, yeah, everything is there. So coming back to the toms, here we go. Yeah, so one skippy one coming up here. And then a fill at the end. So processing wise, EQ, cut the bottom, cut the top. It's poking out a little bit too much, and raised up the middle there. That's quite significant. I've pushed that up by 370 hertz there, plus 3.5 dB. So, you know, that's quite significant. Get them to poke out in the mix a little bit. In the chain after that, I've used some saturation. Just used a 4-band saturator there. Added some more drive and tweaked up the tone of the kind of higher frequencies. I'll start with a preset and start to adjust. Well, actually, the presets, to get the bands, you need to use the preset on the FabFilter Saturn there. Yeah, there's a little bit of reverb on this, so I've used the Pro R, a real kind of tight drum room here, and EQ'd the different reverbs. Within, I love this. The Pro R. Again, it's another day for another look at it. Just a real short type reverb on that. I think it's one of the only reverbs I've used in this session, because simply I wanted to, leave it to the producers in BandLab to do their own thing. But it did need that little bit extra in that chain of effects. Actually, that can be moved up to that slot. Yeah, what else? Okay, so clavs. You saw me record these earlier in the session. Generally, I would normally put reverb on these and space them out. I've left them dry-ish anyway. Noise gate there was some noise in between, so I've used the gate to open and close and cut some of the noise out, so they're a lot tighter. Channel EQ, quite pokey with that microphone again, so brought down to cut some tops and took out a lot of bottom there again. And more saturation, bring out some harmonics, why not? Just very gentle. We've got, we just listen. Yeah, cool. Crash. I've used here again another bank of crashes. Just thrown in one that sat with the track really well, and then I've started some processing. So I've done a reverse one because I'm going to include a reverse and a straight and a reverse straight within the pack for use in whatever way a budding producer sees fit. I'm also going to supply some dry ones, but for this process I've added a little bit of delay with Fab Filter Timeless, and yeah, one of my favorite things to do with crashes, especially with disco, a phaser on it. So we've got this vibe. Ooh. When it comes, T-back. Which is just lush, and you can go further with that and add some filters if need be. But yeah, in the mix sounds lovely. Shaker, yes, again, saw me recording shakers. Got to be live, got to be authentic. I've taken a best part of those shakers, one of the better loops I recorded, so I'm not the best, and one that's working in time and has got a bit of swing. Quite happy with that as it sounds. Saturation again, bringing out some harmonics on the top end, and then literally there's a lot of low end in this, and I wanted it to sit in the mix a lot more, so I've cut a lot, as you can see. In the mix. Cool. So that's the drums. I'll be rendering whole sections and individuals for the use of, however those producers want to use them. Right, bass. Why not push down? So the bass line was recorded using Contact and the old Scarby Live bass. I do really like that. I then reinforce that Scarby Live bass with a sine. So I actually generally use the EXS24, just the default setting. It's a brilliant sine wave. So I've gone for a low sub to get the really nice solid low end out of that. Both of these basses are then bust across to you can't see it, but it's on a well, you can on the screen here. It's bust across to a mid, a low, and a high frequency buses. So I frequency split, and then I can control and process those frequencies. And then on the chain of effects, I tend to, and then those are then bust out and grouped back together again after I process those frequencies, and then I've used a bit of saturation again, and some compression, and I've monoed the stereo signals, so the bass is in mono. Okay, so basses. Funky, very funky. And I tend to push out on the frequency splitting. I tend to push out the strings just a lovely, so you get the funk in there. I tend to accentuate those with some EQ and mix wise to pull them out. All right, next up was the disco guitar. I've had somebody in to record some, and I have also used the Scarby guitar, and that's given me a really cool guitar. All of these guitars versions I've recorded and manipulated. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 versions are grouped, routed, bussed to my guitar bus. I've got a chain of effects. Let's just bring this down into the picture. I've got a chain of effects here that I've built over the last year or so, which I think is great for a lot of guitars. I'm not going to go into it, but it's yeah, you know, I've got Kramer tape on there, pro compressors, pro limiter, stereo imaging, some amps, a really cool amp setting. So you know, I've really looked into how back in the day a lot of disco guitars were processed using amplifiers and stuff, and kind of emulated that as best possible. So they sound like this in the mix. So this is the main one. I then got somebody in to quickly record a mute underneath that. A different rhythm there, which complements it well. And then played some different chords, of which I've processed. I've used Camel Space here. This one of my favourite plugins by Camel Audio. I'm so glad I've still got this working. I've used this for years. It just does so many cool things. You know, this is a let's listen to this guitar chord a minute. can hear that. So I'm using some auto pan, some filters there, although it won't pan now because I've actually, I don't know why I'm using that pan actually, because I've monoed the guitar. But I'm using a flanger stereo delay there, and you know the great thing is I'm able to then move the XY pad around, so I could, you know, fully modulate this if I wanted to. And you can hear it slightly modulating anyway. That's just sitting underneath, it's just some quick chords, which really back it up, lovely. Next one, reverse guitar. I just took a chord, played, and yeah, simply reversed it. So lovely little trick, great feature, really works that well. All right, we're going to get into some of the keys now. I'm conscious of time. I don't want this video to overrun, so I'm going to kind of scoot through this as best I can. Keys. All right, so this was a bit of fun. I brought this in, and let's have a listen to it now. Let's have a listen to it without. It was too much because I actually had it repeating. It's the chords, but with movement is a sort of a really great plugin. I used movement on it and it changed it up, but it feels like it's too much playing all the time. I just want it to be like an underlying element. After hearing this over and over, so I've cut out throughout the sequence like unnecessary elements I don't need. So I've then processed it again using EQ. I want to take all that bottom end out of it, and there's no need for that, for it to sit in the mix and lovely. And then I've again gone for camel space. Looked at some pad settings on that and manipulated and changed those up. So now I've got a lovely delay there. Really kind of nice techie sound to that. We're trying to do modern kind of disco here. So that in the mix is level wise very, very minimal. It just sits there in the background. Alright, moving on. The electric piano, you saw me playing the chords, struggling to play chords, the chords, which are the basis of this whole song. It's usually how I start a track, some drum work, chords, get some chords, really a chord progression really working. And yeah, these were played with the Stage 73, the Arturia Stage 73, which is sitting right there. Love this. I've made a couple little changes underneath the hood to get it to sound how I wanted it. I've then EQ'd out the bottom end, added a little bit of boost shelf again around the old 3K mark. More saturation, bit more drive on this. I wanted to kind of sound a little bit distorted, a little bit naughty, a bit dirty. And then on the very end with this, I've used an imager and I love this new imager that's in Ozone 8. Yeah, so I've basically pushed up those frequencies. I found the frequencies I really like here, and pushed up the 2 and the 3 band here and here, and pushed it wide. I love roads that are just kind of sat in the background but out there in a mix. It just sounds lovely. So. In the mix. Lovely. Okay, moving on. You can hear strings. They're in there. Without going into too much depth again, I use various string banks in Contact. Yeah, they're really strong string banks. I'm not going to name any names on these at the minute. Don't want to give away too many secret weapons. But yeah, these strings live recorded. These are amazing. And I've just basically gone for some short staccato strings, playing quite stabby scales. Beautiful. And in the mix. Moving on then to my terribly horrible processed Vox. No, I like it. It's, well, you be the decision makers on this. It's, yeah, I wanted to have a little bit of a vocal in it. I had this hook running through my head, had some words that I thought, yeah, they mean something, and this is what I've come up with. Can you feel the music? Can you take the sound? Can you feel the music? Can you take the sound? That just repeats. And how I got that, quite simply, you saw the video in the video earlier. Used the VT3, having a little play about with that live, and also recorded a straight vocal in, of which is here in Melodyne. I brought this into Melodyne because I do try my hardest to sing, but I'm not the greatest singer. So I pitched myself, not that much, I may note, only a little bit. So did some correction, got that sounding really, really cool, and love Melodyne, really great piece of software. Use it a lot for vocals. And then what did I do? And then rendered that out, and then mixed it with the VT, and processed it through Orange Vocoder. So rendered the two together, and then went for Orange Vocoder and did some settings on here, and you can hear it in the key of D with my singing. I've used a sidechain here as well from Audio 3, which is the guitar, the guitar loop. It's adding a little bit more rhythm to it, and I've also, yeah, and then this, I had a harmonic D, an octave up, for the word sound, and obviously you end up with that. Can you feel the music? Can you take the sound? So That's working. Moving on. Disco blips. They've got to be done for a Loopack. Just used the Mini Moog V for these. Made some adjustments. There you are. Edited and cut up. Moving on to the dirty sweep sound I've put in here. Yeah, I had a bit of fun with that. I was originally going for a piz sweep, and I was just fooling about. And I tend to use. Let's show you what I use. Yeah, there it is. The ESP. So that's that sound, and what I was doing was using just a noise generator with some chorus overdrive, sorting the envelopes out so I could use it correctly, and then I was just playing about and brought in this oscillator, and I started having these pitch rises, which using the speed were sounding great, and changing the resonance of the filter. So yeah, I thought, wow, I like that. I'm gonna have to grab that. Recorded it MIDI here, recorded it in, and did some automation with the frequency and the resonance, and then ended up with what you're hearing there, the dirty sweep. However, there's a little bit more on this. I've added movement. This is just such a wonderful plugin. Oh, it's jumped onto my other screen. Wow, this, without going into too much detail, this is it's a rhythmic generator, you know, incorporating delays, filters, compression, reverbs, pan, different volumes. You can step sequence via bars and you know, note wise, and then you've got an XY, so you can move around between those, and that's how that's got movement at the moment. And then I've also kind of used some EQ after that as well, because taking out, there was too much low end and it was clashing bass wise, and again, a little bit more pushing out the top there. Sitting in a mix, it's great. Just adds this other element to the track. Moving on then, Sylenth, favourite synth of mine. I wanted to get this kind of pokey synth sound just popping in. So yeah, I've made a load of patches, years in Sylenth. There we go. Lovely. So I kind of used Saturn, more saturation again. Get a little bit of dirt on that. It was peaking too much on the top. I wanted to pull out a lot of the bottoms that sat in the mix again a lot better, and then I've used Pro C. I've just done some general compression settings there. If I freeze that a second, let's see if we can hear that a lot better. There we go. Okay, and then finally, you saw me recording this Moog. This is great. delay modulation on that. So it's just the Mini V. Beautiful. Used a 24 VCO unison here and just made some little tweaks to it. I've added a phaser. It's phasing. Lovely. Compression. Once again, to control some of those peaks. And some EQ to pull it out the bottom end, a little bit of rise air above the top, really lovely, and sits it in the mix well. Might clash with the vocal a little bit, but actually, I don't know, I think it kind of works at the moment. Okay guys, that's the Loopack, all finished, all complete. I just want to say thanks for tuning in, watching this video. Hopefully it was of some use to you. Get out there and explore the Loopack, get into BandLab, get the sequencer, jam on it, jump into my Loopack and have a good time. You can do that at bandlab.com. Build your own profile on there. To find out a little bit more about me, Enyon, feel free to visit www.enyondisco, that's with a K.com, and you'll find everything about me on there. Lots of my music, remixes, original material, radio show, a monthly radio show I do, so much more. So yeah, everything about in the world of Enyon. Jump on there, check it out. Okay, until next time. Thank you very much. See ya.